Speaking of money, we're going to talk about that today. That's going to dominate our conversation today. And I had you read the economic organization of a POW camp. What'd you think? Don't all talk at once. Lillian, what did you think? The question is, what did you think of the economic organization of the POW camp reading? So I encourage you all to read it for the upcoming exam. Because in that, they cover a lot of the concepts we're going to be talking about today. It's a nice introduction. And so as we move forward for today, I hope that for those of you who did read it, you bring it in. But we'll see. How many of you did do the reading? Okay. What did you think of it, Jonathan?
It was pretty long, but it was good.
It is definitely the longest reading I have, but it was, yeah. Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
I know like the main part was like cigarettes played a big role,
Mhm.
currency.
Yeah.
And then inflation did happen. Like cigarettes were like the biggest currency there, and you have like I think butter was one of them as well, right? I forgot if it was butter or something else. But like it would take a lot of something else to just get a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, cigarettes evolved as a currency, but they weren't initially a currency as you recall. Remember, there was no currency at first. There was barter. So, in order to appreciate the value of money as a technology and why they created any sort of currency, it happened to be cigarettes in the POW camp. Let's appreciate the problems of barter. What is barter? I have a question. Yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
Exchanging goods for other goods.
Could you give me an example?
Probably bread for egg, or like I don't know, salt for something.
Yeah, exactly. Just trading goods in kind, right? So, well, let's imagine we had a barter system. Let's imagine you did bread for eggs. Let's imagine I have chickens, and so I have eggs, and I would like some bread. If I go to the baker and I say, I would like some bread, what problem might I encounter?
If you do this today?
Hmm?
So if you do this today?
Yeah, we did this today. Just hypothetically, in this hypothetical world without money, where we all operate under barter, what's the problem I would encounter?
You might have to get more eggs than you have. I mean, you might ask for like a dozen eggs for one loaf of bread. That might not seem worth it to you.
Sure. And so there might be negotiation, right? And maybe he asked for too much. But there's a deeper problem. Yeah.
We as individuals don't produce a lot of things, so we might not have a lot of things to barter with.
I like where you're going. I like this direction, right? Because I might only produce eggs. But why might that be a problem? I might have lots of eggs because I'm so good at it, right? I have a comparative advantage.
Eggs might not hold as much value as, they might not have as much value to us in the modern world as they did 100 years ago.
I don't know. When egg prices were going up, people were pretty pissed. Think about if you're baking bread, yeah.
Is it because bread needs eggs? How are you going to get bread if the baker doesn't have eggs?
Well, bread doesn't always, I don't think bread needs eggs. I think bread, you don't need eggs. Sometimes bread will, sometimes. But you're going in the right direction. Yeah.
I was going to say, what if they don't need what you have?
Oh, Francis, you're absolutely right. To say that again?
If they don't need what you have
Yeah. What if they don't want eggs? Maybe they already have eggs. Maybe they're not interested in getting eggs. Maybe they have an egg allergy. Maybe for some reason they don't want eggs. And I'm like, all I have are eggs. I'm sorry. We can't possibly come to it, which is weird because I am producing something of value. Eggs are useful, and they have something I want, and so it creates this cost. It's not enough to to find somebody who has something I want. They have to have something. They have to want something I have, and so we call this the double coincidence of wants. That's problem A. In fact, I want to put this all the way up because I might do the whole chart here. All right, there's another problem of wants. It's not enough that they have something I want, they have to want something I have. And that might not always line up. And they might say, well, I'm not interested in eggs, but I am interested in milk. And so they have to go to the milk producer. I'm like, well, do you want some eggs? I can get some milk so that I can trade the milk for the bread. And then the milk producer is like, well, I'm not interested in the eggs either, but I really want is some potatoes. And so they go to the potato producer. It's like, do you want some eggs? I could give you some, then I can get some potatoes. If the potatoes, I get some milk. And the milk, I can get some actual thing that I want, the bread. It just becomes ridiculous. So that's a huge cost. That's a huge problem. Okay, another problem. If we have, I'll just pick 4 letters. Let's imagine we have apples, bananas, carrots, and dates. How many different prices do we have? Assuming everybody wants everything. How many different prices do we have? 4. How did you get 4?
4 items.
Well, careful. Apples have to be expressed in terms of bananas. Bananas have to be expressed in terms of dates. Dates have to be expressed in terms of carrots. Carrots have to be expressed in terms of apples. Apples have to be expressed in terms of dates. Bananas have to be expressed in terms of carrots. Right. There's going to be ratios all over the map. One banana is worth so many apples. 1 carrot is worth so many apples. A date is worth so many apples. But also a banana is worth so many carrots. And a banana is worth so many dates. And a carrot is worth so many. No, there's actually 6 prices. There's 6 prices. If I add eggs, I don't add 1 more price. How many more prices do I add? 4. Because now eggs have to be in terms of apples and bananas and dates and carrots. And then if you start, you'll see how this grows exponentially. You add figs, I'm getting 5 more prices. You add goat cheese, I think it's begins with G, you add 6 more prices, 7 more prices, 8 more prices. The number of prices increases exponentially. With the number of products. And so you can imagine going to get a haircut. And you're like, well, the haircut is going to cost you either 22 bananas or 19 plums or 1/10 of a car or whatever. Like, it just becomes completely impractical. It's hard to figure out how much anything is worth because there's just so many different prices. Let's imagine you're the banana grower. In fact, let me ask you this. Who would you rather be, the banana grower or the carrot grower? Who would you prefer to be? All other things being equal. Think about the item itself. Yeah.
Probably carrots.
Yeah, why?
More resilient to weather.
Yeah, not only more resilient to weather, more resilient in general. How long do bananas last?
A couple of days.
Right, a few days. So the moment you harvest those bananas, you got to use them. if you're trying to buy a car and the person might want, like, I don't know, a few thousand bananas to give up their car, how are you going to accumulate a few thousand bananas? That's going to be really hard. But if, on the same time, they just want a few thousand carrots, well, at least you can store the carrots. Barter means some people are going to be producing things that expire. Haircuts expire immediately. You can, like, maybe you can give people coupons for carrots, but it's like, if you're like, oh, I want my haircut cut like 5,000 times right now, so you can buy a house. It's like, that's not going to work. It's hard to save if you don't have some sort of currency. So we understand the problem. Now let's appreciate the solution. Because the solution to all this is money.
Standardized
Currency. Money has three basic functions. And each one of these functions solves one of these problems. Does anyone know the three functions of money? Heard of them before? Sometimes people have encountered them in other places. Yeah. You have any of those? You can also just those. Shh. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Of the medium of exchange.
I was shushing you, admitting to me that you are looking at the notes, not shushing the information. Okay,
And
yeah.
the medium of account and one side.
Okay, let's take this one at a time, right? Medium of exchange. What does that mean? Anyone? Yeah.
Not use the word in the definition, but like the means by which we like trade.
So do you remember medium is like kind of like a, it's like a thing that flows through it. Like the media is the plural of medium.
So a flow?
Kind of like a means.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, that's what you're saying. But I was trying to I was thinking about like the bridge. I guess that's kind of a means. Yeah.
The means by which, like, I don't want to use the word trade, but like.
I'm gonna say common denominator in all transactions. I was thrown for a bit because I don't want to use the term in the definition, which I appreciate, but I didn't think you were. You were saying means and not median. What was you
Yeah,
doing
I
there?
was trying to find a different word.
Yeah, I hear you. Common denominator in all transactions. Anytime somebody makes an exchange, money is going to be always at least half of that transaction. Sometimes it's more because sometimes people are exchanging money for money, like currency rates, or sometimes they're like there's intertemporal substitution, like they're buying, they're getting a loan, and so forth. But generally speaking, the total amount of money must equal the total amount of units bought, right? So if we're looking at this, back to this equation, MV equals PLYR, you can think of the right-hand side, the price level times the real GDP, as the total number of units of the currency you need to make all the transactions that occur in the economy. And then on the other side, money times the velocity of money are the total number of units of currency that exist. Treating the same dollar multiple times is involved in multiple transactions. Okay, so that solves this problem. Why? Yeah, go ahead, David.
Because now you don't have to worry about what the other person wants what you have because they they already want because they can use it for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. They can turn it into whatever they want. I don't know what they want, right? I don't have to ask. I just say, I'll give you money. You will take money, right? They're like, yeah. So I remember back in the day, I played a lot of Magic the Gathering, which maybe you guys have heard of. It's a collectible trading card game. And I had this huge collection of stuff. And I would like to trade with people. It was fun to do the trading part, not just the actual playing the game part, but it was fun to like try to, I'm looking for particular cards, particular decks, particular reasons. And sometimes I would find something that I wanted, but they didn't have anything, but I didn't have anything they wanted. Or sometimes it would, the opposite would happen too. Like they would say, oh, I'm interested in this card, I'm interested in this card, I'm interested in this card. And I'm like looking at their collection, which is probably not very good. And I'm like, I don't see anything I want. Sorry. There's nothing I need. But what I learned is that there were some cards that lots of people wanted, just as a general matter. And I'm like, I don't see anything I want, but I will trade for you for this land card. Because this particular card I know lots of other people want. I can use it as currency. I can turn it into something I might want. Or later down the line, I might encounter somebody who has something I want, but I don't want anything they have. I can probably give them this instead. And so, it was helpful. Like, you can see it's so valuable that even in cases where technically there are no currencies, certain things will evolve because that's the demand for that. In the case of the POW camp, you can imagine people constantly exchanging for this stuff that they have, this block of things that they get. And then they'll say, well, I want, like, I know I'm a particular religion and I can't eat this particular food, or I'm whatever, I can't do this, and trying to sort that out. And eventually, cigarettes evolve as a common thing that everyone wants. And they're like, oh, I'll just take cigarettes. Even though I don't smoke, I know I can turn them into something else. But it takes time. That's why the POW camp, the transitory one used barter, because it takes time for these standards to evolve. The permanent one evolved money. Okay, what about number of prices? So, Francis, which one solves the number of prices story?
The unit.
What do you mean? What's the unit of account?
How much something's worth.
Yeah. You can easily determine how much something is worth. You want to get a haircut? It's $20, done, right? There's one price. And because there's only one price, then that means the number of goods that we have equals the number of prices they are. It doesn't increase exponentially because everything is done in terms of money. Finally, last one, store value. What's store value?
Equals safe.
Yeah. It holds its, again, I'm using the definition, right, based on it, but it, when earned, it can be held over time and used when needed. Sometimes countries experience hyperinflation. We've talked about that. What causes hyperinflation? Remember we talked about what causes hyperinflation? Yeah, well, way too much money, right? They flood the market with so much money that prices just increase astronomically. And when that happens, which function of money stops working? Like with this hyperinflation, which function of money? Yeah. So what? Unit of account certainly has trouble, but more fundamentally, the store value, right? Yeah. Why?
It's just too much. It's getting less.
It's just not holding its value over time by definition, right? It's losing less and less of its value. That $10,000 that you had is now functionally 5,000 or 1,000 or 100. It's losing. And so note when you have hyperinflation, countries literally they will have situations where people are taking wheelbarrows of cash. It just doesn't work anymore. Money stops functioning as money. It just doesn't work. And then you get countries saying, you know what, we can't use this anymore, and they switch to something else. They literally switch currencies, and they completely abandon. Okay. So these are three things: medium of exchange, unit of account, store value. All three of these things have one thing in common. All functions reduce something called transaction costs. Have you ever heard that term before? You can probably guess what it means just by its name. Yeah, yeah.
The actual impact of completing the transaction itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's all these costs associated with making a transaction. For example, we were talking about the law in New Jersey about how you can't pump your own gas. And so there are people who have, someone say, well, what if they're just busy and all the gas attendants are busy? What did you say? What do you have to do?
You wait.
You just have to wait. That's a transaction cost, right? That creates a rigidity in the system. It used to be the case that when you wanted to buy something, anything, you had to go to a physical store. You might remember those days, maybe when you were a kid. And if they didn't have the thing you wanted, for one, you go to the store, and again, you sometimes experience this if it's like groceries or something. What's the first thing you do if you go to a store? You're trying to find something, maybe something you haven't had before. What do you have to do? What happens? Yeah.
You gotta buy it.
First, you gotta find it, right? Which can be annoying. Like Costco is a little hard to navigate sometimes. And sometimes, even at Giant, they have so many different little things, and you're like, where's the taco mix again? Did I miss it? All right, it takes time. And then if they don't have it, then you have to go to a different store. And all of these are transaction costs. So it's helpful to remember to give some examples of those transaction costs. Another one, too, is when we were talking about frictional unemployment. That's a kind of transaction cost. Because people have to find each other and figure out, do I want to hire you? And that interview process and application process is all to build up to the point where we can make a trade. That's a transaction cost. So it's a big area in economics. It's a really important concept in economics, but it's particularly important here because money reduces transaction costs. There are fewer search costs because you have to engage the double coincidence of wants, for example. There are fewer transaction costs. You don't have to struggle to figure out how much anything is worth to compare prices and shop around. It's a lot easier to figure out how to compare items. You can store because it makes it easier to plan spending and save for emergencies. That's a lowering of transaction costs. Because if you couldn't plan for emergencies, then you would have to do other things. Like be hyper cautious or not take what could be a really great opportunity because you're so concerned about risk. All of these things reduce transaction costs. It's a concept that I sometimes want to bring in earlier because it's so important, but it works so well with money, I bring it in here. But I can also reference to good institutions, for example, have a fundamental role in reducing transaction costs, which just helps them bring about economic growth. We're doing our time. Oh, we got lots of time. Okay, there's no questions on this. Let's imagine it's a zombie apocalypse. And you are trying to figure out what would be a good currency. I know this seems like a really strange thing, and I also probably don't know how to spell apocalypse, but just go with it. Because you're trying to flee because of the zombie apocalypse, and everyone knows if there's a zombie apocalypse, you should flee the cities, right? That's just obvious. We're good on that, right? We know that. That's like basic survival stuff. You have to take things with you, but you can only take so many things. And you do not know what things you will need or what things you might lose along the way or what things will be unexpected. It's nice to have something that's like money that you can turn into other things. Something that you know other people will want. Remember, the money will evolve. It's such a great technology. We all know how it works. So it's likely money will evolve on its own. So my question is, what do you think, as you're grabbing stuff, to flee your house, to flee the city, what things should you grab extra of because it might become a currency? What might be a currency? Yeah, go ahead. So you want to do toilet paper, huh? Why do you want to do toilet paper? I haven't gotten toilet paper before, but I think I know why you suggested it.
And I think it was valued a lot, so I feel like it was as well.
Mm-hmm. But let's think about how that's going to work in practice. Because the toilet paper is kind of large, right? Roll of toilet paper. So like, can you imagine we're on the side of a highway, we don't know each other, and I'm like, look, I really want to buy this like car that you have, maybe you have these 2 cars, and I'm like, I'm gonna give you like 800 rolls of toilet paper. That's like a lot of toilet paper I'm carrying around with me, right? So when we think about the practical considerations, in order for it to function as a medium of exchange, it has to be portable and granular. It's granular in the sense that it can be broken up into smaller pieces, which is great if you just want to buy a drink, but it's not portable, it's too bulky. I don't think this is going to work. Yeah?
Maybe like weapons?
Weapons! So here's the problem. Let's imagine I want to get some canned food from you, and I'm going to say it costs you 2 weapons. And you're like, okay, here is a knife and a sharpened stick. A sharpened stick is a weapon. Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
It's not like that good of a weapon. Like they're not gonna want a stick.
Yeah. Well, but it is a weapon. It's better than not having a weapon at all,
It's true.
right? So that's the problem with weapons. Is when we say 2 weapons, I don't know what that means. And in order to fulfill the unit of account, it must be uniform. Every item must be the same. Oh, we're putting some constrictions on. Yeah, I don't know who put their hand up first. Emily? You wanna do-
I would say bandages or like medical.
So I like what you're doing with bandages because you're being specific, right? We want to keep it uniform. So bandages might work. Again, it's tricky because you might need so many bandages to buy things. I don't know how portable it is. Beatrice, did you have something?
Oh, I was gonna say like medicine.
Medicine. Again, medicine. What do you mean by medicine?
Like painkillers or
Painkillers? Maybe? Maybe like Advil or something?
yeah.
Painkillers don't have a problem. And a lot of medicine has a problem. Expiration date. Remember, if we wanted to be a store of value, right? Won't rot, decay, expire. I mean, there's going to be some give there. I don't know how long the expiration date is on medicine, but I think it's like a year or 2.
It's not that long.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's going to work in practice. I want to get over here. I want to get in the back.
Gasoline?
Gasoline. Yeah, I don't know how portable that is. How much gasoline do you really want to be taking with you? That's a fire risk. Do you not watch zombie movies? David?
Clothing.
Clothing? Again, clothing is not very uniform. Water is heavy. It's going to have the same problem as gasoline.
I was gonna add on to the weapons thing and say knives.
So knives are better because it's more narrow.
Yeah, and like.
But again, there's different qualities of knife.
Yeah, that would determine, like, if you have a better
think I
quality
saved them.
knife, you could probably just get one of them.
So you want to say, you want to use the quality of the knife as kind of like a denomination.
Yeah, or the amount, like.
Yeah.
Bullets worth of water.
Well, that's why I said like a good knife might be like a $20 bill, and a bad knife might be a $1. But the tricky is, it's not clear what a good and a bad knife is. And now we're increasing transaction costs as we're on the side of the road, and I'm arguing this is a really good knife. And you're like, I know it's a little dings. And like,
And then you can put it in.
see, we want something really objective, right? Yeah, in the back, Taylor.
Switch up how much important ways. Switch up.
Lighters?
Like,
So lighters, I think, are nice, except lighters have a little bit of an issue. What's the issue with?
military grade.
Huh?
Like,
What?
They like run out of.
545.
Yeah, and so then then you have a uniform issue. I mean, at least it's easily measurable. You can be like, you can say that has this much liquid in it, and you can see on the side, you can view it. So that's a little better than knives, but we do have this kind of like, we are increasing transaction costs, right? Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
You already mentioned it, but canned food.
So again, canned food has a uniform. This is heavy. Right, it's really heavy, yeah.
Double the weight.
And you can't break it up. You can't break it apart either. You open the canned food. It's like, yeah, so matches is sometimes brought up.
What if it
Matches,
rains?
though,
But you're gonna run out of matches.
You run out of anything.
we use it as currency, right? It's like, this is why you should do the reading, because in the reading, they talk about this issue with the cigarettes. It's like, well, you can run out of cigarettes, except at the same time, some people are just largely exchanging the cigarettes back and forth, right? They're not necessarily being used up. So, Anthony, ammunition again has a uniformity issue.
Specifically like armor piercing, some military class.
Again, you're being kind of, so I wouldn't even say that, because you have to think about what kind of guns people actually have.
Like an AR, 5.56.
And you also want to think, and I don't know that much
Most
about
common.
guns, but I know enough about guns to know that the better the gun, the more likely it is to break. And the more important it is to clean it. And if it gets dirty, I personally would like, if I'm going to get any bullets, I would get stuff for a revolver. You can like drag a revolver through the mud, it still works. It's portable.
Yeah, but that's the most common
And
rifle in the United States.
Yeah.
Most common ammunition.
I'd say 22 is probably more common.
See, this is where I ran into the issues of like, I don't know. Much of what I know about guns, I know from role-playing games. So if you're talking like this is a really common gun, I'm like, you're probably right, I don't know.
In the post-apocalyptic, I see, a lot of people.
But you see, like, we have good points, and if it's not clear what the focal point is, it's not clear to become an ammunition, right? It's not clear to become a currency. Leah, yeah. We might just use money, but I don't know if anyone's going to buy that.
Gold, possibly.
Gold?
If doomsday preppers are right, then gold, but probably not.
The problem with gold,
It's not practical.
yeah, it's so
Doesn't serve a
heavy.
purpose.
You now want
And like, there are some people who insist on exchanging gold. There are like these weird libertarians who like, I think they have a gold, they call it the Gold Bug Conference or something like that. I can't remember the exact name. In like New Hampshire. And they will exchange gold for stuff. But it's like, it's literally a little hair of gold sandwiched between like two pieces, like laminated. And like they're exchanging these little things and a little indication, like, I swear this is pure gold. And it just seems like really impractical because it's not granular. It's not. It's
But on the painkillers front, as long as it's not a medication, as long as it's like shelf stable and it's not something that contains like biologics, like it's not antibiotics, a lot of them are perfectly fine for upwards of 20 years. They might lose a little bit of their potency, but
yeah, but
they won't really decay that much.
That's true, but they do lose their value is the point, right? And then it's like, well, of course, dollars lose their value too. That's inflation. So, is it enough? I don't know. But one of the problems is people might be like, ooh, it's expired, and we don't know. Does that mean it's still fundamentally good, or does that mean it's completely trash? And I know you're telling me it's still fundamentally good, but I question how common that knowledge is.
Yeah.
So one last one.
No, I agree. Painkillers don't have unit of account. You
Yeah.
don't know how many milligrams. You don't even know what it is. So I don't see it as
Yeah,
a risk at all.
I see this as a very dangerous one. But one that I have suggested because I'm trying to figure out, like, it's hard to tell exactly. Like, I like matches. I think people suggest matches sometimes have a uniformity issue because some matches are strike anywhere and some aren't, yada yada. I have suggested, now I can't fucking remember what they're called, but it's medical related. It's alcohol pads. So this is especially true if you have little kids, because they will injure themselves all the time, and you don't want to just put the Band-Aid on directly. You want to disinfect it first. And so these little alcohol pads are all the same. There's tons of them, and that might be something that people might actually use, because you want to disinfect. Disinfect is really important. We don't think of it as really important because we have great sanitation, but it's post-apocalyptic. I'm not so sure.
I've seen a lot of zombie movies where they talk about like Twinkies because they barely expire and they're food and you can always eat them.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of a myth that they barely expire. Also, I think they have a portability issue because they get smushed really. It's funny, no one wants to eat a smushed Twinkie. Even though it tastes the same, no one will eat that. It's going to be rocked around a lot. You want something a bit more durable, right? Last one. I said last one a couple of times. This is fun. Yeah.
Alcohol pads, they dry out though.
What?
They dry out.
Well, if they're sealed, though, aren't they? They're in a package that's sealed.
They can still dry out.
They can still dry out even if sealed?
Yeah. I only know that from my work.
Oh, really? What do you do?
I work at a restaurant, but we have alcohol pads like for wings and stuff, and they dry out really easily.
Oh, really? I mean, maybe just getting cheap ones. I don't know about it. I mean, I'll put a question mark next to that.
I think the cheap one
I'm
gets
Yeah, what?
the cheap one gets dry.
The cheap ones get dry.
Maybe I should.
Maybe it's, I mean, it is a restaurant, right?
I've always found it's just ones that like the sealing machine didn't quite do it right.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
left open, but normally they're
So,
fine.
I mean, I'm going to keep it on there, but I'll put a question mark. But the point is, it's hard, right? It's actually hard to think of something like this. In prison, they will use stamps as a currency. Because they're not allowed to have money in prison. But stamps have the advantage of being uniform, of being portable and granular, right? Because a lot of things you're using it for are pretty small. Like, you can't necessarily break up stamps, but you can break up a pack of stamps, and you're unlikely to want anything that costs less than one stamp. And then they're forever stamps, but they don't actually expire. Okay, yeah, David.
Wait, like, what do the stamps do?
Well, they can send letters, so they do have that inherent value. Yeah. Those kind of stamps. Yeah, not like kids' toys, like stamping. No. So note though that all of what you guys are doing is you're coming up with examples of commodity currencies. So there are 3 different types of currencies we're talking about here. And the first one is the most common, is the historically most common one, commodity. Whenever we talk about currency, we always have to think in terms of where does the value of this come from? In commodity currency, the value derives from the object itself. When I do this example, I almost always get exclusively examples of commodity currencies. Sometimes people will say, well, maybe we'll just keep using money, US dollars. Maybe that will happen. It depends on how bad, I think it depends on how bad the apocalypse is. Because if it's so bad that people are like, I don't think we're gonna ever go back to how things are in my lifetime, then I think people will reasonably say, I'm not gonna accept this as currency. Because I don't think other people will. Other times I will get bottle caps as a currency. And I'm wondering if people know why I get bottle caps as a currency. Fallout. Because there's a video game that's post-apocalyptic, and bottle caps are the currency in that game. And I'm like, I don't think enough people play Fallout to rely on that. But a lot of things, silver was a common source of currencies. Cigarettes, as noted, that's commodity currency. Stamps, commodity currency, and usually anything that we come up with here, it ends up being a commodity currency as well. Right. It has some inherent value based on what it's physically made of. Any questions on that? Nowadays, commodity currencies do not exist, not as a regular kind of currency. Fiat currencies are the standard. So we know what the term fiat means. Fiat money. What?
Isn't it when the value of like the item of currency itself is worth less than how much it's worth in its currency?
Like the physical thing is not worth that much, but what's printed on is. Yes. That's what happens. So where does it get its value from? Yeah.
Full faith and backing of the United States government.
Or
In case
whatever
of
the
our money.
issuing organization is,
Right.
right? So fiat means by law, and its value is derived from of the issuing organization. Oops. Shit. I knew that, right? Virtually all currencies, in fact, we're going to say all currencies that are used today, with the weird exceptions of like in people in prison, are fiat currencies. The currency is worth something because people think it's worth something, and because they think it's worth something, they'll accept it in exchange for goods and services. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But it also comes from this idea that we trust the United States. We trust the Bank of Japan. We trust the euro. We trust the European Union. What do we mean by the legitimacy of the organization? We're trusting because there's nothing inherent about the currency that makes it worth money. That means there's no limit to how much can be made. And so we are trusting the organization not to just flood the market and capture on the seniorage. Does anyone know what the term seniorage is? It's a particular kind of profit. It's the profit you derive from printing money. So, do I actually have any cash on me? I think I have a $5 here. Here we go. What is this thing made out of? Technically, it is a cotton paper blend. It doesn't cost very much money, probably a few pennies to buy the materials, but it is worth $5. And so the difference between the couple of pennies it takes to actually physically make the thing and the $5 that it's worth, that is seniorage. I might be mispronouncing it, but that's the basic word. Now, how then does they maintain this legitimacy? Because this is a big deal, right? Counterfeiting is a big deal. So in order to maintain legitimacy, it's not merely that they won't necessarily just do it. It's not like the government just won't flood the market. They're also taking steps to make sure the market is not flooded. But that's a better way to put it. Because the market is flooded with the currency, then the currency, as noted, will lose value. So what steps do they take? Yeah.
It's very difficult to duplicate.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's very difficult to duplicate, but how? I'm talking about specific ways.
The actual cotton paper blend is very difficult to get a hold of. I think there's only like 1 or 2 companies that make it.
I think there's only one company that's allowed to make it. That's allowed to make it.
Right.
And when it is transported under the highest security. And they do this because when you touch money, it has a particular feel. And so that's why I specify people like it's made out of paper. I'm like, touch paper, then touch money. Right? These are not the same thing. And you can immediately tell. And that's part of the way that they maintain it. Also, too, look at the details on this thing. Right? What are some of the details? I wish I had a 20 because there's more security on a 20. But what are some of the things on the actual bill that make it hard to duplicate?
Watermark.
Serial numbers, right? really important, changes with every dollar. Yeah,
The watermark?
the watermark. What's the purpose of the watermark?
I don't think it's on 5, but it just,
There's something on here. There's no hologram on here,
oh yeah.
but there's that watermark. Right? What's the purpose of that?
I mean, just another measure of making it hard to duplicate.
It's hard to photocopy that. It's hard to capture in the photocopy. You know, there's all these, and like you see on the other side, I don't know how well you can see it, but these little like yellow dots here, right? That's hard to photocopy as well. That's hard to capture. There's all these things that are actually hard to print, and they're all very different from one another, and they're very different from one another on purpose, because they're making it hard to replicate. Fun fact, hard doesn't mean impossible. And there is one country that literally makes a business out of counterfeiting US dollars.
North Korea.
North Korea. This is what their economy has taken them to. We're just gonna like try to copy someone else's work. No. The problem with commodity currency is you're gonna be inherently limited with producing more money, which is tricky because if you have more GDP but you can't produce more money, then the price level falls, where you get deflation. Also, too, some currencies just really hard to deal with. Like gold is annoying. You know what we could do? This is a tricky point, but it's worth talking about. You know what we could do? We could, if we have some gold, we won't actually exchange the gold. The gold is heavy. It's annoying to carry. It's hard to make change. So instead what we do is we will issue dollars that represent the gold. And the idea is, by law, by what defines a dollar, is you can trade a dollar for a certain amount of gold at any time. But we won't actually trade the gold, that's annoying, we'll trade the dollars. This is what we call representative currency. And I put it here because its value is derived from two different sources. Value is derived, actually, from the commodity it represents. And the value is derived from the issuing organization. How is it possible that it's both? Let's talk about how the gold standard, this is called the gold standard, how the gold standard actually worked. When the United States was on the gold standard, it was not the case that every single dollar could be mapped to a certain amount of gold in the country's vaults. Because most of the time, people didn't go to the government and said, I want gold. Most of the time, people would exchange the dollars, and you exchange with someone else, and you exchange with someone else, and it would circulate without it ever being exchanged for anything. Which means, guess what? We don't have to have every ounce be represented, have a $1 analog. We can have stuff count multiple times. We can have the same gold be represented multiple times in the economy. We can leverage that. Imagine, for example, I can't remember the exact numbers. I think I have them in my notes. I might pick something rounder, but I want to pull it up because it's nice to have the actual. Oh, here we go. In the 1920s, 1 ounce of gold was worth $20.67. That was what $1 was, by definition, was about 1/20th of an ounce. So I'm going to round this to 20. We could have an ounce here. If we got an additional ounce, we wouldn't mean, oh, I guess we can issue another $20 bill. We might issue like 5 more $20 bills or 3 more $20 bills. because we know that in practice, those dollars are going to circulate around the country, and they probably will not be exchanged for gold. So there's where the trust in the issuing organization is they trust us, we won't over-issue. We're not going to have like 1 ounce of gold be backed by like $300,000. You know, there won't be that kind of exchange, where it's double dipping, triple dipping, quadruple dipping. We won't be dipping that much. It won't be 10x or 100x. It'll be something reasonable. Something that we can still make a direct connection between, hey, we have this money, I can reasonably expect that we will go to the government or go to a bank and be able to get our money, our gold back. Because if you do this too much, over and over and over again, then your representative currency loses its value. Does that make sense? People just don't trust it anymore. And this happened before the US had like the US dollar, this is what we use. There was a Wild West element where individual banks would issue their own currency. And then some people were like, that currency is not very good. That currency is fine. That currency I don't trust. This currency is super trustworthy. This was a bit annoying. We had multiple currencies issued by multiple banks, and it increased transaction costs. So eventually that went away. But there was concern about overissuing. Any questions? Okay. Let me end on Gresham's law. To set up Gresham's law, let's imagine the Roman Empire. Now, the Roman Empire used a commodity currency. They would also occasionally, I think maybe this was during the Republic, they would use salt to pay its workers. This is where we get the term salary from. Salsa was the Latin for salt. But they also used silver coins. And these silver coins are called the denarii. And I might be mispronouncing the denarii. They had this issue of, as the empire expanded, they needed more coins, right? This is MV equals PLYR. They didn't have that equation, but that was happening, right? We're getting more transactions, our empire's bigger, we need more coins. Well, we got a problem, Kervin. I say to you as the empire, as the emperor, and you're supposed to be in charge of the mint, and you're like, you need to get more coins. You need to make more silver coins. What do I need, Kervin, to make more silver coins?
Silver.
Silver. I'm having trouble go find some silver. And there's some silver you can find. You can get some sort of silver mines. But you're going to run into a limit. So what do you do?
Shouldn't try to find a substitute. Shouldn't try to find a substitute for the silver.
Someone says what?
A substitute for silver.
Some substitute for silver? Well, what kind of substitute were you thinking?
Maybe I forgot the name of the I don't know.
Because remember, right, like the reason why this currency is valuable is because of what it's physically made out of. So we can't like substitute it for iron. China actually did that for a little bit in certain provinces where they were concerned that silver would be stolen from like rebels and outside forces. But it runs into these legitimacy issues, right? Yeah.
You don't have to use like pure silver, you can mix it with something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds like cheating, but that's what we had to do. Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Like, if you use like
all of the silver like very
Uh,
quickly, but if
yeah.
you do like 50% silver and 50% something else, like people can't really tell the difference.
Yeah.
So like we can.
But won't they tell because it's smaller? What do you mean by 50% silver? What's the other 50%?
Sorry, like you could use another like metal that's a lot cheaper,
Uh-huh.
but the coin still like looks and feels the same.
Yeah, exactly. Do we know what we call that? Yeah.
Alloy?
Yeah, so it'll be an alloy, but the alloy is with something called a base metal. So what you can do is you can combine, you can make an alloy. We'll say make an alloy. Now, does anyone know what I mean by a base metal? What's a base metal?
Like a metal that makes up most of it.
Well, not necessarily. So it's doesn't have to be most of it.
Cheap, abundant metal?
Cheap abundant metal, like nickel or tin, some sort of like common metal. Okay. So what I can do is I can take these silver coins, because I have silver coins, there's silver coins around. And Kervin, you can take the silver coin, you can melt them down, you can throw in some tin, and then as mentioned, now you have twice as much metal, right? If they're now half silver, the other half is tin, you have twice as much metal, which means you can make twice as many coins. We call this debasing the currency. And I know it's a little weird because we're talking about debasing the currency. I was like, you would remove the base metal, but here's adding the base metal. Or the value of the intrinsic value of the currency. Intrinsic value. Well, we can have then a little definition. We're going to have something called bad money. Bad money is going to be the debased coins, the coins that are only half silver. And the good money. In our example, it's going to be the ones that are pure silver. Okay, so now, Kervin, you could not possibly get every single silver coin out there. You're going to get some, which means circulating in the Roman Empire are pure silver coins, good coins, and then debased currency, bad coins. Yeah?
Wait, can you tell?
Well, that's the thing. So we're clever, like Kervin and I. We're using exactly the same printing press. We're stamping it. They're the same size of currency. You can't tell easily which are pure silver and which are like half silver. You can't tell. Not easily. But you could eventually tell. You can get them properly weighed, for example, and calculate their density and figure out which ones are pure silver, which ones are half silver. You can eventually figure it out, but maybe in the moment you can't. And even if you could in the moment, you have this problem of transaction costs. If you're like, oh, I want to get some bread from you, and then you pay with the coin, it's like, wait, let me weigh that coin and let's figure out if that's a coin that I want to accept. And this is getting annoying. Because I'm selling bread all the time. I got a line of people who want to buy bread. And I shouldn't have to, if I'm policing every single coin, I'm going to get fewer sales. So I'll just take all the coins, right? They're good for paying taxes, which is really important. Right, so I'll take the coins. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to go through my coins, and I'm going to carefully figure out which are pure silver, which are debased, which are good, and which are bad. And then I've got these two piles, the good money and the bad money. When I go out to buy equipment, when I go out to buy ingredients, when I go out to pay my workers, which coins do I use?
Bad coins.
The bad coins. Everyone uses the bad coins. This is Gresham's law, because everyone is going to use the bad coins. Bad money drives out good. And those bad coins become the new standard. And the good coins, I keep. Maybe I melt them down and then sell them as a block of silver. So I can get a lot more money that way. And the bad coins become the new standard. And then what happened in the Roman Empire is as they kept expanding, and as they kept getting more and more bad coins, they had inflation, and they said, I know what we'll do. Let's debase the currency some more. And they would cut it now 50%, now a quarter, now a half. I'm sorry, not now a quarter, now an eighth, now a 16th. And over the centuries, the silver became less and less prominent in the coins. And archaeologists date how old the coin is based on how much silver it had. If it's a pure silver coin, this is a very old coin. If it's a coin that has very little silver in it, it's much more recent. Eventually, they stopped using currency altogether because the Roman Empire wanted currency so it could go pay its military, and they needed to pay its military and feed its military because, if you don't, then you get overthrown. And so they said, fuck it, everybody. A big reason why we want these coins is so that we can feed our military. All of you farmers out there, we're going to just start collecting food directly. Skip this whole currency thing, this is annoying. And then farmers are like, well, screw you. I'm not doing that because it was so much food, right? They had to get a lot of it because it would decay and all that stuff. And so they said, we're just going to not do this. We're going to leave. And then Roman Empire said, well, screw you back. We're going to keep you there, and you have to stay where you are and keep farming that land. And not just you, but your children's, and your children's children's, and your children's children's children's. You're going to stay right there. And you're going to farm that land. And this was the foundation of the feudal system. After the Roman Empire collapsed, that tradition carried forward into the Middle Ages. It's a lot of cool history when you look at the history of currency. For example, this is my last point before I let you go, and I don't know the German name. It's something like Jokenlachen-Dollar. And it's a very long name that describes a silver mine in, I want to say it was the 1600s. There's a really great silver mine in Germany, Jokenlachen-Dollar. And people really liked getting coins from Jokenlachen-Dollar because they were reliably pure silver. They did not have to worry about it. There's a reputation issue. They're like, no, these are good. We should use these silvers. This is the best coin to exchange in. Jokenlachen-Dollar. But no one wanted to call it Jokenlachen-Dollar. That was too damn long. And so everyone started calling them dollars. Oh, I want some dollars. I would only accept dollars. Dollars are the only one. What does dollar sound like? Dollar. And that's where we get the word from. So with that in mind, I let you go.
Oh, I have a dollar.
Oh, there you go.